Hey everybody, JD here, and we're going to learn our first melody today, and this is a tune called Amazing Grace. It's a traditional tune, possibly a hymn, not sure, but it's a really beautiful melody. It's in what we call 3/4 time, and it's a melody that's basically familiar to everyone, really beautiful but very simple, and really great for some of the keys that we've already learned. G being the key that this is going to be in. So I'm going to play this melody in open position, and then I'm going to also play it in second position. So there's two ways to come at it, and then I'm going to do it in close up and get a little better look at it. So here it is in open position. 1, 2. So that's open position, and in second position, it's going to look like this. It's going to sound, similar but slightly different tonally because we're going to be pressing down the strings for every note instead of using all those open strings. 1, 2. Alright, let's get a closer look here. Alright, so this melody for Amazing Grace in the key of G, all the notes are right from that major scale that we learned the other day, the key of G. And it doesn't go that high, it really just ends right here in terms of the melody. That's the highest note that we're going to get. And one of the notes in the scale doesn't even appear in the melody, so it's just, and there's a lot of these open strings. You're only playing 3 strings, the second string, third string, and fourth string are the only strings that are used in this melody when playing in this position. And just those notes. I'm going to play it pretty slow here, just to get a better kind of look at it. A little count off. 1, 2, and the first note is the open D string, and then the second note is the open G, and then the third and fourth notes are open strings as well, the second string and the third string again. One, two. There was a fretted note, another fretted note to open string. Fretted note, open, fretted, open, fretted, open. So the melody is pretty simple, but it's really beautiful, and it sounds really great with chords as well, and we're going to take a look at that in a little bit later. So here's that same melody in closed or second position. Now this one, you're only using the middle 4 strings, the 5th, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string. And again, it's all right in that major scale that we learned the other day. Here's the closed position G major scale again, starting on the 3rd fret, 6th string. For this melody, we're not going to be going that high. We're just going to be going from here, the 5th fret, with your 4th finger on the A string, up to the D note on the 3rd fret with your 2nd finger on the 2nd string. So this is what it looks and sounds like in close position. 1, 2. So now that we've taken a look at the melody of Amazing Grace, we're going to check out the chords. The tune is simple. It's a beautiful, simple tune. So the chords can be very simple as well. I'm going to show you a few ways to do this tune in terms of chords. 1 or 2 of them are going to be very basic, and another one kind of for fun or for further study later on down the line. If you want to check it out, I'm going to show you a more kind of fancified version of these chords. So let's check out the chords for Amazing Grace in the key of G. Okay, the chords for Amazing Grace, there are not too many. Some of them we've already gone over and you'll know them. A couple we haven't. And there, like I mentioned, there's a few ways to play this. So essentially, the chords are really just 3. G major, C major, D major, and then G. Now there's a slight variation on the G chord that we call G7, where instead of the major 7 being possibly part of the chord, you play the flat or dominant 7. And I like playing that chord in this song as what we call a walk-up on the 4th string, the D string, to that dominant 7th note. And then you've got the chord built on that. So it might sound something like this. G to G7. And then we've also got a D7 chord. This is our basic D major chord. Now this is the same thing as that G, where instead of the kind of major 7th that might be part of that chord, well, in this case actually it would be the flat 7th. So we're going to play that flat 7 instead of the D note. So, and we're going to take a closer look at these chords in just a moment. We've also got a chord that we haven't gone over yet, an A7 chord that's built on that, an open A 5th string. And we're going to take a closer look at that as well. And that's all the chords for this tune. So let's take a closer look. G7 that I mentioned, the D7, and the A7. Now these are very close to chords that you've already went over, but they're a little bit different. Now what I like to do in this particular tune, and in kind of country, old-timey, gospel types of tunes like this, I really like using what we call a walk-up. And that walk-up is walking up the 4th D string from the open D, 2nd fret E note, and then a half step, 1 fret up to that F natural, which is a note that's outside of the key of G. And then that'll be the first note of the chord. And the rest of the G chord is the same as before. So it'll sound something like this. Hear that the top part of the chord is the same, it's just that bottom note is different. Or G7. Now D7 is almost the same as our D chord here, but the note that you're playing with your ring finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string is going to go down to that C natural, and it's going to be played with your 1st finger. And then the other 2 notes of the D chord, or the other 3 notes of the D chord, are all the same. Open D, 2nd fret with your 2nd finger on the G string, 2nd fret with your 3rd finger on the high E string, and then that C note that we talked about with your 1st finger. And then you've got D7 instead of straight up D major. Now A7 is built on our open A string, or 5th string, that right there. And then you've got your 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the D string. Now again, an open string, G is the next note. Then you've got your 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the B string, and then open E. So you get those 5 notes together, and you've got A7. If you wanted to get kind of fancy, instead of playing that open high E string, you could actually fret with your pinky on that string at the 3rd fret. I personally like the sound of that open E, but that's kind of a player's choice there. So those are the 7th chords that are in this tune. Okay, we're going to play through Amazing Grace with these chords. I'm going to play a simple version, and then I'm going to play a version that has the 7th chords that we just looked at. And I'm going to use a strumming pattern that is pretty basic and pretty common. Now this tune is in 3/4 time, so that means there's 3 quarter notes per bar. And the strum is going to be a quarter note on beat 1, a quarter note on beat 2, and then 2 strums, or kind of 8th note strums, on the 3rd beat. So that would sound something like this. 1, 2, 3. 3 and 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3 and 1. And that is relatively static throughout the entire tune. Now there's many different strumming patterns. You could play just dotted half notes. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Just to get used to playing the form of the tune. But I'm going to be playing that strumming pattern. Alright, so here's the simpler version of the tune without the 7th chords, just those 3 chords. 1, 2, 3. That's the entire tune. With the 7th chords, it's going to sound like this. This tune, Amazing Grace, the melody we learned to play on guitar, and we learned the chords separately. And in the earlier tune that we checked out, that great Tom Petty tune, Learning to Fly, we just played the chords, and the melody would be sung. You know, if you accompany yourself, you could sing the melody, or maybe you could play the chords and someone else would sing the melody. A cool thing to do also is to play the melody and the chords on guitar without singing and playing them both together. And that gets to be kind of tough sometimes. Sometimes it's kind of simple depending on what's going on. But I'm going to play a version of Amazing Grace that kind of combines the chords and the melody on the guitar, just as something to kind of see how that kind of works and something to kind of look for down the road. 1, 2.